I am Morgan Chen, 32 years old, and until last week I believed I understood my place in the Whitmore family. Not as a daughter or sister, mind you, but as something they'd picked up along the way, like an old piece of furniture that didn't quite match the decor, but was too much trouble to throw out. My phone buzzed while I sat in my cramped Manhattan office reviewing contracts for the law firm where I worked as a paralegal. The family group chat rarely included anything important, mostly just Aunt Victoria showing off her latest shopping sprees or Cousin Dylan bragging about his deals. But this message made my coffee turn cold in my stomach. Casey, my older cousin by 5 years, had written family meeting about grandmother Eleanor's estate this Saturday. Greenwich Mansion, 2 o'clock sharp. Everyone must attend. Then came the responses: Uncle Harrison with laughing emojis, Victoria with champagne glasses, Dylan with dollar signs. They all seemed so eager, like vultures circling. I typed carefully, "I'll be there." The response came instantly. Casey again. Actually, Morgan, this is for official family members only, not charity cases. 8 thumbs up reactions appeared within seconds. Not a single person defended me. Not one. Dylan added, "Yeah, real Whitmores only. Not strays Eleanor felt sorry for." The word stray hit me like it always did, sharp and precise. That's what Uncle Harrison had called me at Thanksgiving 3 years ago, right in front of everyone. Eleanor's too soft, he'd said, carving the turkey. Taking in strays like their family, that's what ruins good bloodlines. I'd been 17 when my parents died in that accident on the FDR Drive. Eleanor Whitmore, my mother's distant cousin and New York real estate royalty, had taken me in. Not legally, they always made sure to emphasize that. Just letting me stay in the servants' quarters of the Greenwich house while I finished high school. While Casey went to Yale on grandmother's dime, while Dylan got his Harvard MBA fully funded, I worked 3 jobs to pay for CUNY. When Casey graduated, the family threw a party at the Rainbow Room that cost $40,000. When I graduated, no one came. "It's just City College," Aunt Victoria had said. "Hardly worth the traffic." But here's what they never knew during those last 6 months when Eleanor was dying, when the cancer had spread to her bones and she could barely speak. I was the only one there. 127 nights I spent in that hospice room. Reading her Edith Wharton novels, holding her hand through the pain, cleaning her when the nurses were too busy. Harrison hadn't called in 3 years. Victoria only showed up twice, both times to ask for money. Casey and Dylan sent flowers once, probably their assistants doing. I paid $15,000 of my savings to upgrade Eleanor to a private room. Told her it was covered by insurance. She squeezed my hand and whispered, "You're the only one who loves me for me, not my money." The morning she died, she made me promise something strange. "Check with James Hartley," she'd said, her voice barely a breath. "He has something for you. Don't let them know." I'd forgotten about it in the grief and the funeral arrangements that I'd handled alone while the family argued about who would get the house in the Hamptons. Now, staring at those cruel messages in the group chat, I remembered Eleanor's words. I blocked the family chat and searched for James Hartley. Found him senior partner at Hartley and Associates in Stamford. My hands trembled as I dialed. "Miss Chen," he answered on the first ring as if expecting my call. "I've been waiting to hear from you. Can you come to my office immediately? There are matters regarding Mrs. Whitmore's estate that require your urgent attention. But the family meeting is on Saturday." "Miss Chen," his voice turned serious, "they don't know about the revised will. The one Eleanor signed 2 weeks before she passed. You need to understand what's happened before that meeting." "How soon can you be here?" I looked at my desk, covered in other people's contracts, other people's deals, other people's lives. For 15 years, I'd accepted my place as the family charity case. The stray. The one who should be grateful for scraps. "I can be there in 2 hours, I said. "Good. Bring identification." "And Morgan." He paused. "Prepare yourself. Your life is about to change dramatically." As I hung up, I thought about those 8 thumbs-up reactions, about Casey's smug dismissal, about Dylan calling me a stray. They thought they knew who I was. The poor relation. The charity case. The one who didn't matter. They had no idea what was coming. The train ride to Stamford felt longer than usual. Every station stop made me think about turning back, about accepting my place, about not making waves. That's what I'd done for 15 years after all. Keep quiet, be grateful, don't expect too much. James Hartley's office occupied the entire top floor of a historic brownstone. The receptionist, a woman with silver hair and kind eyes, seemed to be expecting me. "Miss Chen, Mr. Hartley is waiting." Can I get you some water? You look a bit pale. I was more than pale. I was terrified. What if this was about debts? What if Eleanor had left me responsible for something I couldn't handle? Hartley stood as I entered, a distinguished man in his 70s, with the kind of presence that commanded respect without trying. His desk held a single folder thick with documents. Miss Chen, please sit. Before we begin, I need to verify something. During Eleanor's final months, were you her primary caregiver? I visited every day after work, I said carefully, and stayed nights when she was frightened. He nodded, making notes. The nurses at the hospice documented your visits. 127 overnight stays, 412 day visits. You were there more than all other family members combined by a factor of 50. I didn't know anyone was counting. Eleanor was. She was counting everything. He opened the folder. 2 weeks before her death, Eleanor called me to her bedside. She was completely lucid. We had 3 doctors verify her mental capacity. She dictated a new will entirely different from the one her family knows about. My mouth went dry. Different how the original will, the one filed 5 years ago, divided her estate equally among her blood relatives. Harrison, Victoria, their children. You were given a small bequest of $20,000 for your years of service. He pulled out a document. This is the new will. Legal, binding, and irreversible. I read the first paragraph 3 times before the words made sense. I, Eleanor Roosevelt Whitmore, being of sound mind and body, do hereby bequeath the majority of my estate to Morgan Chen, whom I consider my true daughter in all ways that matter. Keep reading, Hartley said gently. The numbers didn't seem real. The Manhattan penthouse worth $4.2 million. The Greenwich mansion valued at $3.8 million. The house in the Hamptons another $2.6 million. Investment portfolios totaling $3.8 million. Liquid assets of $500,000. And then at the bottom, control of Whitmore Industries, the family real estate empire, worth another $8 million. This can't be right, I whispered. That's over $23 million. 23.4 to be precise. The family members, Harrison, Victoria, Casey, and Dylan, will split the remaining $500,000. $125,000 each. I felt the room spin. They're going to destroy me. They'll fight this until there's nothing left. Hartley smiled, a sharp expression that reminded me of Eleanor when she was about to close a particularly ruthless deal. No, they won't. Because Eleanor knew her family very well. She hired a private investigator 2 years ago. We have extensive documentation of Harrison embezzling from the company. $5.3 million over the past decade. Victoria has been using Eleanor's credit cards without authorization, running up $800,000 in charges while Eleanor was hospitalized. Dylan forged Eleanor's signature to transfer the deed of the Tribeca penthouse to himself. They stole from her. While she was dying, yes, but there's more. He pulled out a tablet and positioned it where I could see. Eleanor recorded a video message. She wanted you to see this before the family meeting. Eleanor's face appeared on the screen, thin and tired, but with eyes still sharp as cut glass. She was in the hospice bed. I recognized the quilt I'd brought her from home. My dear Morgan. Eleanor's voice was stronger than I remembered from those final days. If you're watching this, then James has told you about the will. You're probably scared, probably thinking about refusing it. Don't you dare. I felt tears sliding down my face. For 15 years, you've accepted their cruelty with grace. When Harrison called you a stray at Thanksgiving, you still helped him with his mortgage problems through that anonymous payment you thought I didn't know about. Yes, darling, I knew. $200,000 you gave him, pretending it came from a distant relative. My secret assistance to the family laid bare. I'd helped them all over the years, always anonymously, always while they treated me like dirt. When Casey needed her wedding paid for, you covered the shortfall of $60,000. When Dylan was about to lose his car dealership, you invested $300,000 through a shell company. You gave them nearly $600,000 of your inheritance from your parents while living in a studio apartment and taking the subway. Eleanor coughed, then continued. They called you a charity case while taking your charity. They excluded you while spending your money. The only real family I had was you, the one with no blood connection at all. The video. Eleanor leaned forward slightly. The family will gather Saturday expecting millions. They've already spent it in their minds. Harrison has debts to the wrong people. Victoria has promised friends investments in companies she doesn't own. Dylan has guaranteed loans against his expected inheritance. They will be desperate when they learn the truth. So, here's what you'll do. You'll go to that meeting. You'll sit there while they dismiss you, while they plan their spending, while they celebrate my death. James will arrive at precisely 3 o'clock with the real will. And Morgan Eleanor's eyes blazed with something fierce. Don't you dare feel guilty. They made their choices. Now they'll live with the consequences. The video ended. I sat in silence, absorbing it all. There's one more thing, Hartley said, pulling out another document. Eleanor left a sealed letter to be given to you after you've seen the video. I opened it with shaking hands. Eleanor's handwriting still elegant despite her illness. My dearest girl, you once asked me why I took you in when your parents died. The truth is you reminded me of myself at 17. Alone, frightened, but with steel in your spine you didn't know existed. The family treated me the same way when I married into it. I was new money, not good enough for the Whitmore name. It took me 40 years to earn their respect through force and fortune. You earned mine through love and loyalty. The money is just money. What I'm really giving you is freedom. Freedom to never again accept less than you deserve. Use it wisely. All my love, Eleanor. Saturday arrived with unseasonable warmth for April. I stood outside the Greenwich mansion at 1:45 watching my family members arrive in their luxury cars. Harrison in his new Mercedes Victoria, in her Range Rover, Casey in the Tesla she'd bragged about for months, Dylan in his Porsche. I'd taken the train, then walked from the station. Same route I'd taken for 15 years. Casey saw me first as I approached the front door. Her face twisted into something between surprise and annoyance. What are you doing here? I specifically told you not to come. I wanted to pay my respects, I said quietly. This was her home. I thought I could at least see it one more time. Dylan emerged from the foyer, already holding a glass of what looked like Eleanor's vintage scotch. The servant's entrance is around back, he said, not even trying to hide his smirk. Oh wait, you're not even staff anymore, are you? Let her in, Harrison called from inside. Let her watch while we discuss real family business. Maybe she'll finally understand her place. The cruelty was so casual, so practiced. They'd refined it over the years into an art form. Inside, the mansion felt different without Eleanor. The family had already started claiming things. I noticed Victoria's purse on Eleanor's favorite chair, Casey's coat thrown over the antique settee. Eleanor had treasured muddy footprints on the Persian rug that Eleanor had imported from Iran in the 60s. They gathered in the formal living room, spreading themselves across the furniture like they owned it already. Which I suppose they thought they did. Before the lawyer arrives, Harrison began settling into Eleanor's wingback chair like a king claiming his throne. We need to discuss the distribution. The will splits everything equally between blood relatives, but I think we can all agree that as the eldest son, I should manage the estate. Eldest nephew, Victoria corrected. And I've been managing my own portfolio for 20 years. I should control the investments. The business should go to someone who actually has an MBA, Dylan interjected, Harvard specifically. They bickered for an hour, dividing up Eleanor's life like carrion birds over a carcass. Casey had already measured the living room for new furniture. Victoria had called an art appraiser for the paintings. Dylan was on his phone with a yacht broker because apparently the first thing he'd buy with his inheritance was a boat. What about the funeral expenses? I asked suddenly. They all turned to look at me as if a piece of furniture had spoken. What about them? Harrison asked. Well, I paid for them. $43,000 for the service, the plot at Woodlawn, the reception. I was wondering if the estate would reimburse. Victoria laughed, a sharp sound like breaking crystal. You chose to waste your money on an elaborate funeral. That's not our problem. Eleanor deserved a proper goodbye, I said. Eleanor deserved family who actually shared her blood, Casey snapped. Not strays who wormed their way into her will for $20,000. $20,000. That's what they thought I was getting. Eleanor had been right. They had no idea about the new will. At precisely 3 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Dylan jumped up. Finally, let's get this over with so we can start liquidating assets. But it wasn't just James Hartley at the door. He'd brought 2 other lawyers, a court reporter and a videographer. What's all this? Harrison demanded. We don't need a circus for a simple will reading. Mr. Whitmore, Hartley said formally. Given the substantial nature of the estate and the potential for disputes, we're recording these proceedings for legal purposes. He sat up at the dining table, arranging documents with precise movements. Everyone please be seated. They sat eagerly, greed barely concealed. I took a chair in the corner, the same one I'd always occupied at family dinners. Before we begin, Hartley continued, I need to verify all parties present. Harrison Whitmore, brother of the deceased nephew, Harrison corrected irritably. Her late husband's nephew. Yes, my apologies. No actual blood relation to Eleanor Roosevelt Whitmore née Roosevelt. Victoria Whitmore Nash, also nephew's spouse sister-in-law, Victoria said tightly. Through marriage. Casey Whitmore and Dylan Whitmore, children of Harrison. They nodded. And Morgan Chen, ward of the deceased. She's not a ward, Dylan protested. She's nobody. She doesn't even need to be here. On the contrary, Hartley said, pulling out the will. Miss Chen's presence is quite essential. He put on reading glasses with deliberate slowness. This is the last will and testament of Eleanor Roosevelt Whitmore, dated March 15th of this year, superseding all previous wills. March 15th, Harrison's voice pitched higher. The will was dated 5 years ago. That will has been revoked. Hartley cleared his throat. I'll read the essential distributions first, then we'll review the full document. He looked directly at me, giving an almost imperceptible nod. To Harrison Whitmore, I leave the sum of $125,000 with a stipulation that this settles all debts between us, including the $200,000 he stole from my accounts while serving as temporary executor during my illness. The room went silent. Harrison's face turned purple. That's slander, I never. We have bank records, Hartley interrupted smoothly. Shall I continue? To Victoria Whitmore Nash, I leave $125,000 minus the $843,000 in unauthorized charges made on my credit cards between January and March of this year. Victoria gasped. Those were approved expenses. To Casey Whitmore, I leave $125,000 and my sincere hope that she learns to value people for more than their bank accounts. To Dylan Whitmore, I leave $125,000 contingent upon him returning the deed to the Tribeca penthouse he fraudulently transferred to himself. Dylan stood up so fast his chair fell backward. This is insane. Where's the rest? Where's the real money? Hartley looked up from the document. To Morgan Chen, whom I consider my daughter in every way that matters, I leave the remainder of my estate. The explosion was immediate. $23.4 million. Hartley continued, his voice cutting through the chaos. Including the Manhattan penthouse, the Greenwich mansion, the Hampton estate investment portfolios, and controlling interest in Whitmore Industries. Harrison lunged toward me, but one of Hartley's associates stepped between us. You manipulated her. You turned her against her real family. Real family. I stood up. 15 years of silence, breaking like a dam. You called me a stray. A charity case. A burden. For 15 years I accepted it because I thought I had no choice. You're nothing, Casey screamed. You're nobody. You don't have Whitmore blood, neither do any of you. Hartley interjected. Eleanor was a Roosevelt who married into the Whitmore family. You're all relatives of her late husband, not her. Miss Chen may not be blood, but she was the only one Eleanor considered true family. He pulled out a tablet and set it on the table. Eleanor left a video message explaining her decision. I'm required to play it in full. Eleanor appeared on screen sitting in her study just weeks before her death. She looked frail but determined. If you're watching this, then you know about my decision. Harrison, Victoria, Casey, Dylan, you're probably furious. Good. Let me explain why you deserve exactly what you're getting. Harrison, you came to me 6 years ago crying about bad investments. I gave you $2 million to save your business. You never paid it back, never even offered. Then while I was dying, you stole another $200,000 from my accounts. You thought I wouldn't notice because I was on morphine. I noticed everything. Harrison's face had gone from purple to white. Victoria, you spent $800,000 on jewelry, furs, and vacations while I was in hospice. You used my cards thinking I'd die before the bills came. You visited twice in 6 months, both times to ask for money. Victoria started crying, but they weren't tears of grief. Casey, my dear, you had the wedding of your dreams for $300,000. You never thanked me. Not once. You sent me a form letter invitation like I was a distant acquaintance. When I RSVP'd, you called to ask if I was bringing a gift check. Casey's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Dylan, you're perhaps the worst. You forged my signature on property documents. You committed fraud. You could go to prison for what you did. The only reason I didn't press charges was because I wanted to see your face when you realized your crime gained you nothing. The video. Eleanor leaned forward. Now let me tell you about Morgan. She worked 3 jobs to put herself through school while you all got free rides. She lived in a closet-sized apartment while you lived in homes I paid for. And yet, when each of you needed help, she gave you hers. My secret was about to be revealed. The anonymous donor who paid off Harrison's mortgage, Morgan. The investor who saved Dylan's dealership, Morgan. The friend who covered Casey's wedding shortfall, Morgan. She gave you all $600,000 over 5 years, her entire inheritance from her parents, while you treated her like garbage. They all turned to stare at me. But here's the most important part, Eleanor continued. When I was dying, really dying, not the abstract concept, but the messy, painful reality, only Morgan was there. She held my hand through 127 nights. She cleaned me when I couldn't control my body. She read to me when the pain was too much to bear. She never asked for anything, never mentioned money, never tried to influence my decisions. Eleanor's eyes blazed from the screen. You want to know why I chose her? Because when everyone else saw dollar signs, she saw a frightened old woman who needed love. That's worth more than all the Whitmore blood in the world. The video ended. The room was tomb silent. This won't stand, Harrison finally whispered. We'll fight this. Mental incapacity. Undue influence. You're welcome to try, Hartley said calmly. However, I should mention that in addition to the will, Eleanor left detailed instructions for criminal prosecution should anyone contest. Harrison, the embezzlement charges alone could get you 10 years. Victoria credit card fraud is a federal offense. Dylan forgery and real estate fraud carry mandatory minimums. He pulled out more documents. Furthermore, Eleanor had 3 psychiatric evaluations in her final month, all confirming mental capacity. She had witnesses from the hospital, including the chief of staff, present at the will signing. We video recorded every meeting. You have no grounds and significant legal exposure. You have 30 days to vacate any properties owned by the estate, another lawyer added. Miss Chen takes possession immediately. Dylan grabbed a vase and threw it against the wall. It shattered pieces, scattering across Eleanor's beloved hardwood floors. You won't get away with this. You're nobody like. You're nothing. Security is waiting outside, Hartley said calmly. Please leave the premises immediately. Victoria stood up, her designer heels clicking on the floor. She walked directly to me, her face inches from mine. I hope you choke on every dollar, she hissed. I hope it turns to ash in your mouth. It's not about the money, I said quietly. It never was. Then, give it back, Casey shrieked. If it's not about money, give it to the real family. I am the real family, I said, and for the first time in 15 years I believed it. I was the only family Eleanor had at the end. You're just relatives who happen to share a name. Harrison was the last to leave. He stopped at the door, his shoulders slumped. That $200,000 you gave me, he said quietly. I knew it was you. I knew, and I still called you a stray. I know, I replied. Eleanor knew too. That's why she made her choice. After they left, Hartley and I stood in the sudden silence. The house felt different, lighter somehow, as if their presence had been pressing down on it for years. There's more, Hartley said, pulling out one last envelope. Eleanor left this to be opened after the will reading. Inside the envelope was a single key and a note in Eleanor's handwriting. Morgan, this opens the safe in my study. Everything inside has been waiting for you since the day you turned 18. I should have given it to you sooner, but I was a coward. Forgive me. The study hadn't changed since Eleanor's death. Her reading glasses still sat on the desk, her favorite pen uncapped, as if she'd just stepped away. The safe was hidden behind a portrait of her late husband, a man I'd never met but whose relatives had made my life miserable. Inside the safe were 3 things that stopped my heart. First, adoption papers dated 15 years ago, fully executed except for my signature. Eleanor had wanted to legally adopt me the moment I'd arrived, but never asked. A sticky note was attached. I was afraid you'd feel obligated to say yes. I wanted you to choose me freely, not from desperation. Second, a photograph I'd never seen. My parents with Eleanor at what looked like a college campus. They were all young, laughing, arms around each other. On the back, Columbia University, 1983. My dearest friends, Robert and Ming Chen. Third, a letter from my mother to Eleanor dated a week before the accident. Eleanor, if anything happens to us, please take care of Morgan. You're the only person we trust with our daughter. She doesn't know you exist. We wanted to give her a normal childhood away from wealth and privilege. But if we're gone, she'll need you. All our love, Ming. I sank into Eleanor's chair, overwhelmed. My parents had known her, had chosen her. This wasn't random charity, it was a promise kept. My phone buzzed with messages. The family group chat had reformed without me, but someone had screenshot their conversation and sent it anonymously. They were planning to contest the will despite the threats. Harrison was calling lawyers. Victoria was trying to liquidate assets before the 30-day deadline. Dylan was attempting to break into the Tribeca penthouse. Then came a call from an unknown number. Miss Chen. This is Detective Rivera with the NYPD. We've just arrested Dylan Whitmore for breaking and entering at a property on Tribeca. He claims he owns it. He doesn't. I'll send the deed documentation immediately. Within 3 days, everything unraveled for them. The IRS opened an investigation into Harrison's embezzlement. Victoria's credit card fraud triggered a federal probe. Casey's husband filed for divorce when he learned she'd hidden debt totaling $500,000, all spent on maintaining an image she couldn't afford. I didn't have to lift a finger. Eleanor had set it all in motion, a calculated demolition of the people who'd pretended to love her. 2 weeks later, I moved into the Manhattan penthouse. The doorman Stanley, who'd worked there for 20 years, smiled when he saw me. Miss Morgan, Mrs. Whitmore, told me you'd be coming. She said, and I quote, "When Morgan arrives, she's not a guest. She's home. Welcome home, ma'am." That night, I found another letter Eleanor had left in the penthouse tucked into the piano bench. My dearest Morgan, by now you know the truth about your parents and me. We were inseparable in college, the three musketeers everyone called us. When they died, I lost my best friends and found their greatest treasure, you. I watched you grow from a frightened teenager into a woman of incredible strength and compassion. You gave your inheritance to people who despised you not from weakness but from a generous heart. You held my hand through the darkness when everyone else abandoned me. The money means nothing. The properties are just things. What I'm really leaving you is what you gave me. Proof that family isn't about blood, it's about choice. And you, my dear one, were always my choice. All my love forever, Eleanor. 1 year later, I stood in the boardroom of Whitmore Industries looking at the faces around the table. Good people, competent people, people Eleanor had trusted but who'd been marginalized by Harrison's management. They looked at me with something I'd never seen in 15 years with the Whitmores. Respect. The quarterly reports show we're up 30%, my CFO reported. The low-income housing project in Queens is ahead of schedule and under budget. Eleanor would have loved this. Using Whitmore Industries not just for profit but for purpose. We'd converted 2 of our luxury developments into mixed-income properties, ensuring teachers, nurses, and firefighters could afford to live in the city they served. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number with a photo attached. Casey working at a department store, her designer clothes replaced with a uniform polo shirt. The message read, "I see what you've done with the company. Mom would be proud. I'm sorry for everything." I didn't respond. Some bridges once burned weren't meant to be rebuilt. That evening, I visited Eleanor's grave at Woodlawn. Fresh roses lay beside my usual bouquet of white carnations. The card read, "Thank you for seeing her worth when we couldn't." The grateful families of Whitmore Housing Initiative. Sitting on the marble bench her will had specified, I opened the final letter Hartley had given me marked open after 1 year. Dearest Morgan, if you're reading this, you've survived the storm. I know they fought you. I know they blamed you. But here you are stronger for it. I need you to know something. The $23 million I left you is nothing compared to what you gave me. You gave me the gift of being truly loved in my final days, not for my money or my name, but for the frightened dying woman I was. That kind of love can't be bought. Your parents would be so proud. When we were young, your mother used to say that kindness was the only currency that mattered. You inherited her heart and your father's strength. You turned out exactly as they hoped despite everything the Whitmores put you through. Now live your life freely. Don't let bitterness poison what we built together. The best revenge isn't destruction. It's living well and lifting others up. Show them what real family means. One last thing. I've arranged for a package to be delivered to you today. Consider it a graduation present 15 years late. Forever your grandmother in all ways that matter, Eleanor. When I returned to the penthouse, Stanley handed me a package. Inside was a Harvard MBA diploma dated this year, my name embossed in gold. Mrs. Whitmore enrolled you the day you turned 18, a note from the registrar explained. She paid full tuition and has been submitting your life experience for credit evaluation. The board approved your graduation based on your management of Whitmore Industries this year. Congratulations, Miss Chen. I laughed, really laughed for the first time since Eleanor died. Even from beyond, she was still opening doors, still fighting for me, still being the family I'd never expected but desperately needed. That night, the news reported Harrison Whitmore's arrest for embezzlement and tax evasion. Victoria had declared bankruptcy. Dylan was serving 3 years for fraud. Casey's divorce had finalized with her getting nothing. I felt no joy in their suffering, just a hollow recognition of justice served. They'd had everything: love, money, opportunity, and had thrown it all away for greed. My phone rang. James Hartley. "Morgan, I have one last message from Eleanor. She said to tell you only when you were ready." "Are you ready?" "I think so." She said, "Blood makes you related. Loyalty makes you family. Love makes you whole. You made me whole, Morgan. Now go make yourself whole." I stood at the window overlooking Central Park, the city lights spreading like stars below. Somewhere out there, the Whitmores were learning what I'd always known: that money without love is poverty, that family without loyalty is emptiness, that cruelty always comes back to collect its due. But I wasn't thinking about them anymore. I was thinking about tomorrow, about the scholarship recipients I'd meet, about the families who'd move into affordable homes, about the life Eleanor had given me the freedom to build. The Charity case had inherited more than money. She'd inherited the power to redefine family itself. And that, as Eleanor knew, was worth more than $23 million. It was worth everything.